Good morning and welcome to the Daily Aus. It's Friday the 10th of April. I'm Emma Gillespie.
I'm Billi FitzSimons.
Secondhand fashion giant Depop is being sued in a US court over hidden fees. Now, a woman in California alleges many Depop users might actually be unaware of the platform's mandatory checkout fees, which she says lack transparency. She's calling for better transparency on the platform and an undisclosed financial sum, but thousands of Depop's 56 million registered users could potentially sign on to this action, which could have massive implications for the platform and its users around the world. We're going to explain everything you need to know about this lawsuit in today's deep dive, but first, here's a quick message from Sarah from the TDA team.
My name is Sarah. I am the Strategic Partnerships Manager at the Daily Aus. One of the most common questions we get asked at TDA is how do we make money? I love that question because it's exactly what I do, help TDA make money. We mainly do that via ads on newsletters, Instagram, and podcast episodes. When I started, our commercial team had just 2 people. Now we have 7. To keep growing our team, which in turn means we can keep explaining the news to you, we need our audience to grow. The best way you can help us is by pressing follow on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. And thank you for being part of the TDA community.
It is a Friday, and so we thought we would do a bit of a lighter topic today in what has been a very heavy news cycle.
Yep, it's been a massive week in news, so it's nice to talk about something a little less serious, I guess.
Yes, and I am stoked for talking about Depop. I feel like I discovered it like a year or 2 years ago, and then I became completely obsessed.
Yeah.
And I came to the office and said, guys, have you heard about Depop?
Yeah, well, when you started that sentence saying, I feel like I discovered it, pause, I was thinking you were going to say, I feel like I discovered Depop, because when you found it, a few years after the rest of us, it changed your world.
It did change my world. I became completely obsessed with it, and I am still obsessed with it. And I have noticed since I have started using it that the fees have increased. So I'm very fascinated to learn that there is this lawsuit happening. But before we get to that, for anyone who didn't discover it like I did a couple of years ago, do you want to just explain what it is? It's kind of like eBay.
Yeah, a little bit. And it's interesting that you say that, Billi, because eBay is actually in the process of buying Depop, but we'll get to that later. It was founded in 2011 by a guy called Simon Beckerman. It actually began as a marketplace for this Italian culture magazine, this independent magazine where readers could go on Depop, as it was then, and buy items that they'd seen in the magazine. So it was sort of an extension of a mag, which is really interesting. But since then, it's obviously exploded into this global marketplace. It's become something very different, and it's a pre-loved fashion app, basically. It has over 50 million registered users. 10 million of those are active buyers and sellers. And to date, according to the Depop website, over $6 billion of goods have been sold on the platform. Wow. I think it's also really interesting that Depop has a very young audience or a very young demographic in the context of online retail. Almost 90% of buyers specifically on Depop are under the age of 34.
Wow, that is a very young audience. I guess that is what sets it apart from eBay. eBay has a bit of an older audience.
Yeah, and very much the look and feel and branding of Depop and the user experience within the app itself feels like it is targeting a younger audience or a very social savvy audience.
Yeah, it kind of mimics a social media platform.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, and so we're talking about it today because there is this class action lawsuit.
Yep.
Before we get to who is launching it and why they're launching it, do you want to just quickly explain what is a class action lawsuit?
Yeah, so a class action lawsuit is action that a whole group of people can sign on to, led by one person known as the plaintiff. Now, this lawsuit is in the process of becoming a class action. So the plaintiff bringing it is seeking for the court to approve it as a class action. If the court approves it, it will have huge implications and potentially millions of people could sign on.
Okay, so tell us why they have launched this legal action and the mandatory fee.
So a woman in California whose name is Lindsay Din was browsing Depop in January 2025. She saw an item that she liked advertised for $17. That's 17 US dollars, about $24. She decided to buy it. Now, when she got to the checkout, Lindsay Din says that a $1.55 marketplace fee appeared that hadn't been mentioned anywhere else during the browsing process. She ended up paying it, but it left a funny feeling with her. So she looked into the fee and the way that it was disclosed, or rather not disclosed, investigated the charge and found that it could actually be illegal under California law. So she sought some legal advice and then filed legal action in a California court in February of this year.
Wow, those people are amazing. I feel like most people would be like, that's annoying. Maybe I won't buy it. Maybe I will, but then I'll move on.
Yeah.
But the fact that she's actually gone to lawyers and then potentially representing millions of people on behalf of it.
Yeah.
A true leader.
A true leader. And I mean, she is right to have investigated it. The fact that she thought she was buying something for $17, ended up paying $18.55. There are potentially laws that have been broken here with this practice. So specifically, Depop is accused of a lack of transparency over mandatory fees and of this practice called drip pricing or junk fees. Now, that basically means hidden or unnecessary or surprise charges that are applied at the final stage of a transaction.
You know who I feel like has done this so much recently? Uber. I swear when I'm buying like a $20 meal, suddenly there's a delivery fee, a service fee.
Yeah.
There are so many different, a usage fee. I'm like, what is going on? How are there so many fees? There's like 5 different ones.
There are a lot of fees, particularly in the world of food delivery and ride sharing. I guess for the world of retail, you might assume that it's a bit more transparent. But this kind of practice of drip pricing is actually illegal in California, where the case has been brought.
So it's definitely illegal in the state where she was buying this item.
Yes, and it's only been illegal for a couple of years. So on the 1st of July 2024, California rolled out this piece of legislation called its honest pricing law. Basically, that just means that fees have to be included in the advertised price of an item. So when you see an item advertised on Depop in the state of California, if it says it's $17, you should be paying $17. Government imposed taxes, things like shipping costs, delivery fees, they're exempt from this pricing law. But Din is arguing basically the advertised price goes against those honest pricing laws. Now, interestingly, with this legal complaint, there are screenshots that are included from 2025 that show the price with no additional disclosure. So they show the transaction and the additional fee and no kind of asterisks or little section that flags what you're paying and why you're paying it. But by the time the lawsuit was filed, a little icon quietly appeared for Depop users at the checkout. It's a little eye and it appears next to prices. When you click on it, it explains the marketplace fee and it says that it's included in the displayed total and it says what the fee is for. Depop is now being accused within this lawsuit of quietly updating its terms to rectify an unlawful practice without drawing attention to it.
And that's the kind of thing where you should be reading the terms and conditions and they say, oh, we've updated the terms and conditions.
Yeah.
Do you agree? And you're like, yes, because I don't know.
Who's going to read them?
No one reads the terms and conditions. Interesting. Okay, we're going to explain where this lawsuit is up to, but first we're going to take a quick break.
Hey, I'm Sam. I'm the co-founder of TDA. With one button, 82% of you who aren't subscribed to this YouTube channel can change that and help Australian media. Click subscribe. Now back to the video.
Okay, so we've spoken about this happening in California, but obviously Depop doesn't just operate in California. It doesn't just operate in the US. It operates all around the globe.
Yeah.
So does this mandatory fee apply to everyone?
Well, interestingly, it only applies to users in the US and the UK, so not in Australia. So if this class action proceeds, Australian users won't be able to sign on.
Because it doesn't apply to us.
Because the fee does not apply to us, or the
Right.
fee is already inbuilt into the advertised price here in Australia because of our own laws here.
That's what I've been wondering when you've been explaining it, because in Australia, if you are a seller, then 10%, I think it's 10% of the price that you sell an item for goes to Depop.
Yeah.
Which sounds like this is what this is, but it's an extra amount of money on
Well,
top.
this fee is separate to what sellers are charged. So sellers are charged an amount on Depop for using the platform to sell their goods. So it's like a commission. But buyers in the US and the UK pay this fee, which covers buyer protection and customer support. So Din's lawyer is basically saying it's fair enough that Depop charges a fee like that. They're not arguing that it's unfair for Depop to charge the kind of fee that covers buyer protections. They're just saying that it should be built into the listed price from the get-go. Now, the complaint argues that by waiting until checkout to reveal that fee, that it's exploiting the fact that shoppers are already invested. The legal documents actually include some consumer behavior research, which basically says, a shopper puts so much time into the process. By the time they get to the checkout and they're ready to enter their card details or pay for an item, they've really kind of already made up their mind, and that having extra fees at that point exploits their buy-in to a product, that we've already made a decision about what we're going to spend. We're going to go all the way. We're not going to let a $1.50 fee stop us, but that is inherently unfair and, according to this lawsuit, illegal.
Got it. Interesting. And so what does Depop say about that?
Well, we haven't heard from Depop yet. Its response to the complaint is due on the 27th of April, but there is some really interesting timing that I wanted to talk about with relation to this lawsuit. We mentioned briefly earlier that eBay is buying Depop. Now, this is all happening at the same time as this lawsuit. So Depop is going to be sold from Etsy to eBay. Etsy, an online platform you might be familiar with, purchased Depop back in 2021, paid over $2 billion for it, Australian dollars. Etsy is selling Depop for about $1.7 billion, so selling it at a loss after 5 years, and that deal is expected to close by the middle of the year. That means eBay is likely to inherit this lawsuit, but we're not really sure yet how liable it will be for Depop's past conduct. So it gets kind of messy. Who is responsible? The person that owns Depop today, tomorrow, next week, or last year? Or is this a lawsuit against Etsy as the parent company of Depop? And I guess that is what we're waiting for the court to determine. For now, this case really is in its earliest stages. Din and her lawyers are asking for it to be certified as a class action so it could be opened up to users in the US and the UK. If that happens, it could take 1 to 2 to even 3 years for a final ruling. But what we often see in cases like this are big brands and platforms seeking to settle as early as possible. So Depop may end up offering the plaintiff, Lindsay Din in this case, a sum of money to agree to drop the action, and that would mean that they would settle a lot earlier and it would avoid becoming a class action. If it becomes a class action with so many users in the US and the UK, you'd have to think Depop could be up for several millions of dollars in compensatory damages.
Wait, that would be so interesting if Depop settles with the singular plaintiff and she turns her $1.50 fee into, we don't know how much it could be, but it could be thousands of dollars.
And it has to be noted that, you flagged earlier that it takes a certain kind of person to pursue this sort of action. That's not without cost and stress.
True.
She's brought on her own lawyers. She would be paying those legal fees herself, footing the bill, doing the hard yards, investigating the, legal ramifications of this. So I suppose, it might be worth it for her.
And just to finish, you said before that the laws in Australia are different. What are our laws when it comes to drip fees?
Yeah, so drip fee practices, junk fees, are illegal here under Australian consumer law. According to that legislation, businesses must display any taxes, duties, unavoidable extra fees must be disclosed in the advertised price. That doesn't mean that Australians aren't at risk of these practices. Obviously, the world of online shopping is a global one and transcends geographical jurisdictions. So the ACCC says that if you think you're being charged unfairly, shop around, look at what competitors are charging, look into the fees that you're being charged and the law where you are, and add up the numbers yourself. If things don't add up, be prepared to back out of a transaction is the advice from the consumer watchdog. If things don't feel right, they're probably not.
Well, I, for one, am grateful that we're in Australia and we can keep using our Depop fairly fee-free, although there are the fees built in, but you know what I mean.
And there's GST and all the shipping and everything else. So we're not exactly getting away scot-free, but it seems to be a slightly more regulated space for Australian buyers.
Thank you for explaining it. That is all we have time for today.
Thank you so much for listening. And before we go, I did just want to shout out, if you are interested in stories like this, if you want more explainers of this nature, we talk about these kinds of things in the Culture newsletter. It comes out every Thursday afternoon. You can sign up for free. We'll pop a link in the show notes. It's everything you need from the world of entertainment, pop culture, and beyond, straight to your inbox every Thursday.
My favorite thing about it is that I feel like so much culture and gossip news can, like I just said, be gossip.
Yeah.
And I love that the culture newsletter is like, these are the facts of all of the celebrity stories, entertainment. We do a bit of art, but these are the actual facts of the culture stories that you've been hearing about. It's very TDA in nature,
and
which I
there's
love.
bite-sized fun bits. It's not all heavy, smart.
No, it's not serious at all.
Some of it's silly, some of it's serious, but give it a go. Check it out.
The link for that will be in today's show notes. We will see you over there, and we will also be back in your ears later today with the evening headlines. So we'll see you there.